All right, we got David and James joining us. Codeglia, two
Hello.
film.
Costia. That's
What's
right.
that?
Costia.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Two really great, sophisticated filmmakers working in the comedy puppet genre. Is that fair to say?
For this project, for sure.
For this project, for
I don't know if we've worked
RoboCop.
with puppets since.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wonderful
RoboCop Remake ED-209. David is director, and James, you are the director of photography.
That's
And
right.
That's right.
what a cool, you guys are brothers, identical twins. I mean, I've got to ask, like, what's that like?
It's I guess what is it like for everyone else? Like I think for me at least, sometimes I forget that I'm an identical twin. Someone goes, "Oh, you're twins." And I go, "Oh yeah. Yeah, there's another one of me." I was actually talking about this last night with my fiance, and she was saying sometimes you run into your doppelganger. Like she'll look at someone on the street and say, "That's me. That's another one of me." Is it like that for you just all the time? I said, "Pretty much, except
That's
I know there's
cool.
one, but sometimes I'll see a third or a fourth.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
gotta wonder."
That's cool. That's cool. Well, like I was telling you guys before, I think it's a really, um, you know, precious. I'll say that it's just a really cool thing that, when two people that are brothers can work so closely together and collaborate and have that dialogue and communication, the reflection, and it works, together. I mean, there's a lot of families that are dysfunctional, and to see two people to be able to, not only share the same family and the same genes, but to be able to collaborate and work and to create something really cool. I mean, RoboCop Ed 209 was quite a sophisticated project. By the way, I got to mention you guys were nominated by Eric Toms. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks,
Um,
Eric.
so we'll go right to the first question is what was the seed, the spark, the, kind of creative passion for working and making and creating this project?
It was prompted by David Seeger and Channel 101. They organized this project where a bunch of filmmakers each did one scene from the movie, and you had some leeway to make it funny and do whatever you wanted. And we had done it previously for our Footloose remake, where we teamed up with our buddy Chris Cantwell at at Disney, where we all worked. We shot this really violent scene from Footloose in a parking lot, and we had so much fun doing that. When they came around for this RoboCop remake, we signed up for a scene that we loved as kids. My brother and I saw RoboCop when we were 10, I think, and that scene where Ed-209, the giant robot that kills an executive, horrified me as a kid personally, and then delighted me as we kept rewatching it. And we signed up for that scene right away because it's such a funny scene and so brilliant, and also just because the robot's really cool. I wish we had like a meta reason to do this scene, but it was just because it was so cool and we wanted to see Ed 209 in real life and pay homage to a brilliant film.
Well, I believe, like we were talking about, like, I'll try to encourage people and keep asking why and to probe. And, there's got to be a meta reason. It's like, why are you two guys attracted to this genre? Because you've done it a couple times now. I mean, you turned Ed 209 into a feature, right?
Well, that was, yeah, David Seeger turned the whole recreated the whole feature and outsourced each scene to a different set of filmmakers. So like scene one was
Oh,
by, this
I
director and his
see.
team. Maybe it was
I see.
animated. Scene two,
I
you'd have a
see.
whole new set of cast, a whole
I
new
see.
look, a different style.
I
So we signed up for what was going to be two scenes. That conference room scene split up into two, and we begged and pleaded to have it kind of merge.
I
Or
see.
actually, I think we actually just shot a little more so we could do the whole scene, but the only part they were going to use in the feature was this bit. But
I see. I
yeah,
see.
I think it
so
was both. I think it was broken up after Kenny gets killed. There's the aftermath little scene,
yeah, there's
and
like
we
a
just
little
wanted we
more.
were and we thought the humor would carry a little better in the two, and he was cool with it. So
It's like
thanks to
we're
Dave
already
Seeker.
here. We already
Got
got
it.
this location and built this thing. We might as well finish it.
Well,
And yeah,
would you say that you guys have a passion for the genre of kind of this comedic,
yeah,
farcical?
yeah. Like we may have many genres that we work in and love sort of equally, but there was something about our childhood that was filled with sort of the 80s action movie,
Yeah.
and almost all of those come with this sort of sense of humor that can be intertwined with
Mhm.
the violence and drama in different ways. And RoboCop is probably a pretty good sweet spot of what might describe a style Dave and I love to gravitate towards. It's got a
Mhm.
sense of humor, and it's funny. It's a little scary, a little violent, and then you mix that with other 80s action movies like Back to the Future, and you're starting to get an idea of what we really like.
Well, I mean, kind of as we're talking, I'm reflecting on my own experience with those movies, and there's got to be just this real boyish sense of fun,
Yeah,
that you can reconnect to, and you know, as you're a little older, not so intimidated by the violence, and that it's, you know, uh, fake and pretend, you can even kind of, I guess, make that even more of a farce and play on the over exaggerated nature of the violence.
yeah,
You
I
know,
think RoboCop especially, that movie is just it's one of those movies you can grow up with, because when you're young, it's scary, and you grow up older and you think it's just a dumb, fun action movie. And then you grow up even more and you realize it has some real depth to it, how it's about a man and his trapped soul inside this machine that the world built for him, but the soul can't be contained, so it breaks free and seeks, revenge. Or you can dig even deeper and realize, oh, he's the American Jesus figure. Instead of resurrecting to save people, he resurrects to shoot people. But you don't need to know that to enjoy the movie. But yeah, I think that's right. I think it's the sense of fun and just imagination time and unapologetic, going 100% in the direction you want it to go. And that's just fun for us, because James and I grew up making movies together since, we had a camera in our hands in fifth grade, I think, maybe even sooner. And we just
mhm,
made movies in our backyards with our friends. So
mhm.
whatever we thought was funny or fun, like whatever the idea was, we just kind of did it. And RoboCop's kind of reflective of that, because why puppets? Why this scene? All that, it all sort of evolved as we went. We just kind of went with it.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
for me, it's
no,
just filmmaking in general, and this project in particular does evoke a time where it just feels like play for me,
yeah,
because like Dave said, ever since fifth grade, even sooner, I think we had a video camera in our hands, and it just became part of our playtime, making silly movies in the backyard on the weekends. And it could have just as easily been a water gun fight. It was kind of the same playtime for us. And so on this project as well, it felt like playtime. We were playing with people who knew how to do puppets, and we had props and costumes, and we were just kind of having a really good time. And so it really did connect with that sense of childhood, I think.
yeah, that's cool. Thanks, guys. And I think that sense of play, the two things that kind of resonate with me is a sense of play is very much that feeling of freedom, and that
Mhm.
limitless sense of freedom. And I think that is certainly something that any artist can connect to with respect to what they're doing, as an artist,
Mhm.
and choosing whatever medium they're working, and to connect it with that sense of freedom by sheer fact of creating and being a
Yeah.
creative. And also, David, you mentioned the sort of more intellectual side, um, of the movie, and potentially, the spirit that trapped in a machine. And I think it's pretty much whenever you explore any sci-fi, of lasting, generational quality, there's always some kind of depth to it, like what you're saying. There's really something that an artist, whether through fun or through drama or through even violence, is exploring that nature of being human. And that's so much what I'm trying to get after in the show, is really, whatever, how we express what we do as artists, you can't help but explore the nature of being human, because you're doing it.
Yeah.
You're human, you're doing it, and there's some meaning to it that's greater than just the surface level, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, good sci-fi isn't about the what if factor, although that's fun and that's what we buy the toys for. what if space, what if laser swords. That's all really fun, but the reason we love those movies is when it's about people, and that's what we're actually responding to. So
Right.
what I like about sci-fi is it takes us as people and it puts us into a hypothetical can, and it says, okay, what if, how do people react to this? What if, what if you're stuck on a spaceship and an alien slowly killing your crew one by one? There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
What if you're trapped in a metal suit? What if dinosaurs? And that's, I think, a lot of genre movies now, they end with that, and they forget to be like, no, no, how does this person react? The person who created the dinosaurs, how is he reacting when he's realizing he shouldn't have done it? Watch the progression of real people and real
Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah.
That's what glues the thing together, and why we want to keep watching as adults.
Yeah, that's really a great way to put it, and I think that's what you guys were able to capture in your short rendition of that scene. Is that you have characters, you have characters um, that are believable, you know, even
I mean,
in
that's tribute to Paul Verhoeven. Those characters. This is straight out of the original movie. This is a remake. We were only
yeah,
paying homage, but it was fun to take the humor that was already in that scene and just extend it a little bit. We have the shooting going on longer. So how does Dick Jones react to the shooting happening? So, well, he would keep trying to sell Ed-209 even while the guy's
hmm
dying on the table.
hmm
He'd be like, "Oh,
hmm
this is great what Ed-209 is doing, and what excuses might he come up with?" So
hmm
it's
Like
really just an expansion of those characters.
while most of the scene is literally a recreation, like Dave said, the dialogue's the same. I copied the shots and the lighting as close
huh,
as we could,
huh,
and then there's a breaking point where the shooting doesn't stop, and we sort of switch into our own mode. Like, how
I
long can we
see,
keep this going? How long can we stay in this moment? We'll just
I
take this
see,
little piece of candy and we'll
I
stretch it out
see.
like
Oh,
this.
that's cool.
And
Yeah,
out of necessity, like we couldn't do blood hits, and so that sort of dictated the style for us. Like, well, let's do something silly that's easy to clean up. Maybe it's fluff, so maybe it's a puppet, you
uh-huh,
know
uh-huh,
and by extension, maybe the sets can be cardboard, something cheap that we can afford. And in that nature, sort of the comedy takes a little turn, probably from the beginning, but mostly when puppets start dying. Is it becomes more like, what if RoboCop was sort of filmed like a kids TV show, at least in the style of it,
mhm.
but it keeps the same serious tone? Would that be a fun juxtaposition to watch and to make? And the answer was, heck yes, it was.
And it's like, why that's why we added the rainbow over Delta City. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, cute kids show. Like, you feel like they might break out into song. It lets the violence continue more, and we can do a little more silly humor that the film original may not allow. Like, the other puppet is still the stenographer is still typing,
Right.
and that's kind of silly. And the fact that feathers are falling throughout the scene, it lets us be goofier. But we did expand on that idea that the whole scene's about how the corporation is only upset that the product didn't work, or other guys in the room are excited that they have an opportunity for their product to come in now.
Right.
So we expanded that by having medics coming in the background. They're doing CPR on dead Kenny, and only half the room's paying attention to it. The other guys are talking business. What's the next step?
And that's all
Right.
motivated by the themes of the original film. Like, how do we sort of take that sense of comedy, really? Like, RoboCop has a good sense of humor about itself when you dig deep into it. And does that comedy extend into a different kind of comedy where it's just a little more slapsticky and silly, but it's still kind of saying the same messages underneath?
Mhm.
And the story is just so good that it kind of held up, even though we were messing with it quite a bit.
It might be that the original movie is just so good we couldn't really ruin it. Like, even if we just threw in as much goofy chaos as possible, you can still read into it after the fact. I mean, we had none of this in our heads, I don't think, when we were making it.
No.
I think we loved the original scene and didn't want to mess with it, and maybe wanted to expand on its humor. The puppets are zero metaphor, except that we think they're funny looking.
Yeah. No, it fits. It definitely fits with what you guys were aiming for, and I think you pulled it off quite well. And the message, which you guys already touched upon, that's the second real question of play it forward is that scene really does have a message, and you guys already, definitely again touched upon it. But could you state it? What you felt the message of that?
Don't leave ammo in Ed-209 during a demonstration. There's no
Okay.
reason to do.
Okay.
Blanks maybe would be good.
Okay.
I guess it's mostly about, I mean, at least the scene we worked on, it's a corporate greed scene, you know, like
Right.
how do we profit as much as possible? This company has taken over the police force, and they're making this product that is too early to go out, is to say the least. You know, it's not ready, and people leave this scene, and in scenes that follow, they go like, yes, that was awesome, you know, so and so's product totally failed, and now I got my chance. My backup plan, which is RoboCop, is going to kick butt, and I'm going to climb the ladder of this company, and I'm going to make a lot of money. And someone, other character says, too bad about the guy who died, right? He said, "Yeah, that's life in the big city." You know, it's a completely satirical, it's a complete satire on, I think,
Yes.
corporate greed most of the time. And then when you're with RoboCop, it's about the human soul and such. But
Yeah.
our scene
Yeah.
was very much about, screw everyone else. Let me climb this ladder as fast as possible. This, you know, humanity be damned.
You know,
Yeah.
RoboCop's about the capitalization of everything in society, and there's an early scene where it's a medical commercial for a robot heart, and they mentioned the popular brand names that the hearts are made by. And at the time, it was a joke. Everyone laughed, being like, "This is ridiculous. The medical field would never advertise directly to the patient. That's a
Mm,
doctor. Like, what a ridiculous
mm,
idea!" And
mm,
it's happened, of course.
mm,
You know,
mm.
and so it's like the privatization of the
Wow.
military is happening, that the movie touches on that humor, and
And
the privatization of the police. Who knows? Um, yeah, it just shows like, well, what's the limit of? I mean, you can complain about the government, you can complain about capitalism, but there's always going to be some sort of balance issue between the two.
Yeah.
that one's fun too, because they literally remove the person's heart and replace it with a machine. There's
So
no
yeah,
symbolism whatsoever.
I didn't realize. So back then they weren't making commercials, medical commercials for drugs.
I don't think
I'm
they
not sure if it
were.
was. I don't. I think it's just something I heard and I read that it was just that back then it was just. It
Wow.
seems even more ridiculous than it does now, and it's still funny now because it has its own jokes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know I didn't realize that that's actually a setup, James. I think that they set up the fact that they can build parts of a human, and they buried that exposition in the humor of the mechanical heart. It's like,
Mm.
oh, if we
Yeah,
can build the heart, then the rest of the body is easy.
I think it's, you know, a lot of it's about like progressing too fast, you know, moving into technology too fast. Other parts of the newscast talk about, you know,
Yeah.
the laser, the defense system that misfired this morning and killed all these people. You know,
Uh,
anyway, on to our next story. It's just sort
No
of
one
like the
seems to
world they live
care.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no one seems to care.
well,
Yeah.
that's a really, strong point because it seems to say that the technological advances that human beings are capable of often exceed their intellectual, emotional maturity levels.
Oh,
Just like
completely.
visual effects and big action scenes. You know, there's some action scenes with big CGI and stuff going on. And with all this whooshing around, some filmmakers forget the people involved, like show us how they're feeling
Right.
about the craziness happening, you know, keep
Yeah.
the camera on human levels. Because I can't relate to flying at 1,000 miles per hour through buildings like it's nothing, you know, show people. And some movies do that very well. But if you don't care about the people, the action's going to be
Yeah.
meaningless.
And if we want to get really deep, we could start talking about how RoboCop is talking about, you know, taking the soul out of people and replacing it with machinery. And I haven't thought about this, but our scene, our remake is actually putting more people into the robots. Like we literally had a human controlling our
Yes, you
robot.
can see the
When
legs.
in the movie it was done with, you know,
Right.
real props, and it was, you know, it was
Right.
special effects and all those things. So
That's a
we're literally
really,
putting people inside people with puppets. We're putting people inside of
really,
robots.
really great point, James.
So
I think there's really, really something to that. It's really interesting that the level of humor that you're playing on there
I don't
really
think we
went.
realized that one.
Yeah, I don't think so. And
That was
that's
just out of practicality. Like we couldn't build a you know,
right,
we're not
right,
roboticists. So,
right,
but
right.
we
Which
did notice the part of it that we did notice in ourselves. Dave was talking about visual effects, maybe taking some of the life out of things. We purposefully left, I mean, by design, our puppeteer's legs showing through the ED-209 robot.
right,
Even
right,
made a joke about it in the scene. But also, you know, we could sort of see him through like the screen door mesh we had that he was behind. And we thought about fixing that where you can't see his face. We're like, no, leave it. Like, it's all in camera. We're going to leave the puppet rods for our puppets. Let's leave the puppeteer. If his face shows up, his
Yeah.
face shows up. The only effects we did were maybe if like I see off the top of the set and it wasn't a perfect shot, we might do something like that. But we kind of wanted to leave the puppet show, kids show flaws. We wanted to, you know, leave our mistakes in, or leave the roughness in, I guess.
Yeah.
Leave some of that humanity in.
Exactly. Yes. I think it's a great, really interesting point. It's really humanized the whole you know, setting and mindset of it, and makes it, you know, that much more of a juxtaposition,
Yeah.
you
Well, the
know.
original was so handmade and handcrafted. You know, those films we grew up with. You know, when Jurassic Park came around and CGI really aided Spielberg in making a great movie, there are a lot of people now that are obsessed with perfection in movies. You know, people like to point out, look at the mistakes
Right.
in this movie. Look, you can see the reflection of the crew in that shot of the Matrix. It's like, I think they knew they could see themselves and they did their best to minimalize it. And if you're in the story, you don't care. And no one's trying to hide the fact that this is a movie made by people. So that's another sort of like getting rid of the humanity of it. It's like, hey, it's a movie, people made it, mistakes are allowed if they don't bother you. And
Yeah.
now we're so obsessed, like, oh, it's like the coffee cup in Game of Thrones. I never saw the cup in Game of Thrones because I was into the
Cool.
story. I mean, it's fun to notice later, but then to call it a mistake
Right.
and be like, oh, these idiots. It's like, you don't know, you haven't been on a film set, man.
Right.
It is a lot of work, and it is
Right.
stressful and fast. Like, we have a behind the scenes of how we made this. And the fun stuff we like to include in our behind the scenes is all the stress and
Yeah.
mistakes we made.
Yeah.
Like, there's a scene where ED-209 is taking steps and his toes are flying in every direction. And I'm picking up like, we don't need those, we don't need them. And it was
He's
just like,
falling apart.
Yeah.
we were, we didn't have sleep. Our friends were like laughing with us, and we barely got through that shoot, man. It was crazy.
Yes.
But we still
Yeah.
do it for some reason, maybe because we're insane.
Yes. I
Just a little.
know. I know. I think every filmmaker out there who's made a short film knows what you're talking about, you know, for sure.
And like,
Guys,
you know about the reflection. We're not going to paint it out, and the filmmaker's like, we know it's there. We don't care.
And we
You know,
spend so much of our careers, you know, fixing little flaws. And it was kind of nice just to take a break from that and embrace imperfection.
yeah, yeah. There's a school of Japanese art, Zen art. They intentionally, you know, make an error in the painting, or maybe it extends to other mediums, but they intentionally do that, you know, as a reference to their humanity, you know, our humanity. So, guys, last question. How? I mean, you guys made this what, in 2014? Is that right?
Yeah, I
thereabouts,
think we
yeah.
shot 2013 and it came out beginning 2014.
You guys have been making, I mean, it's 8 years ago. You guys have been making a lot of other stuff since. How have you grown and changed as filmmakers since then?
Wow. And I mean,
Not at all. Not at all.
because the easy
Remain
answer would
stagnant.
be like, you know, technical skill. You figure out your skills and you get better at. So I feel like I'm a better DP than I was technically,
Yeah.
but the rest is interesting. You know, how have I grown? Otherwise, I think a big one that comes to mind is how I work with my crew. I think early on, you know, ever since it was sort of a two-man band back in the days of the backyard,
Yeah.
we were definitely used to doing everything ourselves. Like, okay, let me put the light here. Now let me run over here and set up the camera. Okay, now we're gonna hold the microphone while we do this. It took me a while to learn how to delegate and actually let people do their job, and that can be easy too until you start to have, you know, some projects you have people who have never held a microphone before, and you want to it feels easier to go over and just do it for them rather than to show them the right way to do it. It feels like it takes longer, but obviously you can't do everything yourself. So I've become sort of a better leader in that way, and also more trusting. And
Yeah. That's the word I was waiting for.
yeah, and
Yeah.
also, yeah, exactly, and sort of letting go too.
Yeah.
Like, so many projects where I'm not going to be doing the color correction, I'm
Right.
not in charge of the edit, and so I've found some peace in trust, and like, I've done my job, and you know,
Yep.
if people edit in the worst camera operating takes that I did, or the time where that light was supposed to be on was off. It's their movie now. I'm just gonna pass it on. And yeah, I think that trust has been building for me.
That's great.
Embracing imperfection.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like I've grown in terms of learning how to be a better storyteller myself. We've done a lot of parody and humor, and we had a very sort of sheltered childhood where nothing crazy bad went wrong. So we always went into playtime and imaginary time. It was all fun and games. And more recently, as I've grown up, I think I've been more interested in drama, what's going on with us as people psychologically. And I'm really interested in how people feel. I'll spend hours on the phone with friends about how they're feeling and how that make me feel. And I think that's informed by writing. Sometime. Oh yeah, man. We're doing it now. Let's keep it going.
I need somebody to listen to me.
We're listening.
You are.
See you.
You are.
I'm like, oh man, that must be really hard.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm still working on it, obviously, but I feel like I'm a better writer in terms of being a storyteller, coming up with my own stories, and finding the dark humor in the drama of our lives. I think I progressed in that way. All the things James said, being more trusting, and
collaborative effort.
Totally. And we've written some scripts, we've done some features, we've worked on TV shows, and we've gotten to witness some really cool big movies, and we just still love it so much, and we're still learning. I can't imagine doing anything else. It's just too fun.
That's awesome. I think you mentioned, you guys, David, you mentioned listening, James, you mentioned trust. I mean, two of those things go hand in hand, and listening to yourself, listening to others, trusting yourself, trusting others. David James Codeglia, did I do okay? Codeglia?
Yeah, beautiful.
Codeglia is beautiful.
Codeglia. It's such a pleasure, man, having you guys on the show. Thank you so much for joining us, joining me today, and I look forward to being in touch. And all the best, guys. You're doing great work. You're gonna have many, many years to come. Enjoy it.
Thanks. Looking forward to Digipops.
Thank you, guys. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Congrats. It really sounds awesome, and I'm excited to be a part of it and start entering some things into it.
Thank you, guys. We'll keep you posted. It's going to be a little ways out yet. It's a very mature product. I'll tell you that. You guys, I mean, as far as the road, you guys know what it's like to make those movies. I mean, this has been years and years and years of that, and we're getting there. We're getting there. So I will definitely keep you posted. Thank you, guys.
That'd be great. Well, thanks for having me.
A pleasure. All right, we'll let you know when this is released. Okay, take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.